Hey everyone, and welcome to the show. Today I'm excited to have my friend Jayse here. He is from Cosmic Origins, his YouTube channel, and his other project, the Conscious Crypto, which I'm also a member of. It's pretty awesome stuff. He's a great crypto coach if you're looking for someone in that area. Uh, but today there's some big crypto news that we wanted to talk about. Um, it looks like the SEC Ripple case came to a ruling, and Jayse, I guess you'd probably be the most well-versed to give a little background on the history of that for people who don't know and what that means and what the significance of it is. So I'll turn it over to you for kicking us off here.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you for that intro. So, and glad to be here. Thank you guys for having me on so much.
Absolutely.
Excited to talk about it. It's like you said, there's some exciting news today, and it was very synchronistically and divinely timed. I think that we're having this chat right when all this news is coming out, just like a couple hours ago. So, to give kind of the rundown, especially for people that are brand new to crypto, basically there's a cryptocurrency called XRP, and this is the cryptocurrency that we focus on the most in our conscious crypto program. And it's one that I've noticed throughout my awakening journey that people have repeatedly been divinely guided to in one form or another. And it's what woke me up to even crypto being something positive in the first place, because I was pretty anti crypto when I only knew about Bitcoin and like Ethereum. I figured it was just kind of all the new world order money, and it didn't resonate with me.
Right.
And one day, basically, somebody told me about XRP, and it just lit something up in my body. It's hard to describe it. When when you hear something and you just know it, you get that feeling in your body, and you're like, okay, there's truth to that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like your intuition taps into that and you feel it. Yeah. Resonates. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I felt it, and I immediately was like, okay, I'm gonna go buy some. And it was also at 17 cents at the time, which was a big synchronicity number for me.
Yeah.
So basically that's what led me into my crypto journey. And I realized that lots of other people who are in our, kind of extended communities of the consciousness and the spiritual disclosure communities were feeling guided to this in a similar way that I was, where they didn't like crypto, they didn't feel good about Bitcoin. And then they heard about XRP and they're like, wait, something's telling me there's something to that. So basically we can kind of maybe fill in the details after this if you guys want. But fast forward to what's going on today. Um, there was 2 years ago, there was a lawsuit that the Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States, the SEC, which is known for being a very corrupt agency,
Right.
they
Right.
they sued the company Ripple, who is basically the company that is they're basically the largest developers for XRP. They don't own or control it in terms of its decentralized nature, but they are the largest developers in terms of like getting it into um, like institutions to kind of shift the change from within. And that's what I realized about XRP is it was kind of this Trojan horse into the old cabal controlled financial systems, the legacy banking dynasties. And this was even confirmed by the creator of it recently on Twitter. Somebody came
Yeah.
out. Did you see that?
I saw you talk about that. I was like, well, that's a positive thing for them to be so bold to say that, right? And be open about it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So he basically confirmed in someone else's long thread that XRP was meant for the people. It's not supposed to be for the banks like a lot of the you could say the people that are pro Bitcoin tend to be. They think that XRP is like the banker's coin. But he confirmed it's for the people. It's actually to help take down the banks and their monopoly. And so as such, when you're on that kind of mission, you're going to get retaliation or flack. So the SEC sued Ripple and basically said, you've been selling unregistered securities or unregistered stocks
Okay.
in the form of XRP. And they tried to claim XRP is not a currency. It's not a decentralized currency. It's a stock, basically, which everyone in the space knew is just technically completely wrong.
Right. Right. Wow.
And so for the past 2 years, we've basically been waiting for this to like come out and get a ruling on this. And finally today it happened, and the judge ruled in favor of Ripple that that basically XRP does not constitute a security. And now it's having massive impacts on all of cryptocurrency, because
Yeah.
this ruling directly impacts the way that the rest of crypto is going to be regulated. So even people that weren't, say, invested or a fan of XRP, they knew that the results of this were going to impact everything
Right.
else.
Right.
Right.
Everybody's very excited today.
And
Yeah.
you can even tell it. Okay, you see, even though the other coins are less of an increase, everything's an increase. It's amazing to see that happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly a big day. So was Ripple the only company that the SEC went after? And I mean, if it is, I mean, they probably singled it out for the reasons you mentioned earlier, I would imagine.
They're the only major company of their size that got sued. There were some smaller projects that kind of preceded it that people don't really know about, one called Library, but Ripple was by far the biggest. And we also saw massive corruption with the SEC with the whole FTX collapse scenario. Are you guys familiar with that?
Yeah. Right. If you want to explain a little bit of that.
So there's this company, FTX. They were becoming a household name. They had Super Bowl ads. Tom Brady was a sponsor. Every A-list celebrity pretty much was like partnering with them. They were very, systemically oriented, cabal controlled, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
So
Right.
they basically were engaging in all this fraudulent activity. They were over leveraged on their assets, and it basically came all crashing down on them. And people lost billions of dollars. They didn't get it back. And it was bad for the whole crypto space because it put a bad look on crypto, when in reality, FTX and the guy who runs it, Sam Bankman-Fried, he was basically lobbying with the SEC to take down the decentralized for the people aspects of crypto and promote the centralized ones that they control.
Got it. Got
Mm,
it.
okay.
Makes sense.
And then it came out that like they were funneling money from basically donations to Ukraine, were getting funneled through this FTX group back to the Democratic Party and some Republicans as well.
Oh
Wow.
wow.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Okay.
Yeah.
Deep,
So it
deep
was,
web of
yeah,
nefarious things going on there for sure. Yeah. Um, so what I guess let's talk about the implications of this settlement and the timing of it and what it means for the crypto community and with respect to other countries taking on these centralized CBDCs as their main form of currency and where XRP might play into that.
totally. Yes. So CBDCs are obviously a big topic of discussion right now. If you're watching this and you don't know that term, it stands for central banking digital currency. And it's basically what is being positioned to be the new form of currency, in what you could kind of call the cabal timeline, I guess. Um, Essentially, they want fully controllable, fully programmable currency that, they can have expirations on them. They can do all this stuff that lets them put their hand in your pocket way more, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like what China is doing with their digital yuan and their social credit system.
Mm.
And on the flip side, you have blockchain and decentralized digital assets. So you have hyper centralized digital assets like in China, and then you have decentralized digital assets that anyone can use and that are run by the community. So you don't have any, like with the blockchain, with XRP, for instance, you don't have any one party calling the shots. It's not like a bank or a PayPal or a Venmo, where if they don't like your political beliefs, then you don't get to spend your money, or you don't get to, use your
Right.
PayPal or whatever, right?
They can turn you off like that, yeah, because they control it all, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And I've seen that happen to so many people in this community, like people who especially get donations for talking about stuff, like have had their accounts messed with. And that's what really led me to this too, is like, I'm like, we need a place where we can actually sovereignly own what we own. and that big brother can't put their hand in it when they don't like what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's great.
that's the ultimate solution for sure. Yeah.
So
So,
like,
yeah, go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so you think that on this blockchain platform with XRP that governments will be interested in accepting this as and using it as the platform for their currencies?
So already, many countries around the world, including Japan, Korea, Egypt, many African countries, Saudi Arabia, some other Middle Eastern countries, some European countries, their banks are already signed on to this and using it. And I see this as like the Trojan horse, like I was saying earlier, into the system where it's kind of this new technology that they need to adopt if they want to stay relevant. So the way I see it is that, the banks obviously want to have control, but this new technology, because it's permissionless, meaning anybody can use it, there's no authority, it puts them in a threat, and it's going to force them to, I think, level up their services. And because now people can essentially bank themselves, like when you have a what's called a private wallet on the blockchain, that's where you have basically like a little device that's kind of like a thumb drive, and that essentially stores your cryptocurrency. Um, and Shoot, a total brain fart. I forgot where I was going with that. Yeah, that's the one. What was your question again?
um, Governments actually using Ripple or XRP as a platform for their official currency and stuff. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, so many countries already are. The US is kind of like the last domino, basically. They were the ones that were kind of holding up the mass adoption. And a big part of this that I see being integral into this whole shift is the BRICS nations. The BRICS nations are Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And many more countries are petitioning to join the BRICS nations right now. I think Saudi Arabia, I think maybe the UAE, a lot of countries around the world are trying to join. And they're basically an economic alliance that has been around for decades, but has been more popularized recently because they have just announced that they are releasing a competitor to the dollar as the world reserve currency. And it's going to be a new gold backed and precious metal backed reserve currency that all these other superpowers of the world unanimously decided they're going to use.
Hmm.
And so that puts us in this position where, are we going to go against that, or are we going to join that? And
Right.
I think positive timeline, what I think will happen, in the positive, is when we kind of fix the current corruption in our government and everything, that we're going to join with the BRICS nations, and that these nations will have respectively defeated their cabals and their central banking dynasties. And
Mhm.
XRP, I believe, is going to be the settlement tool that all of these nations use to trade with each other. So, because they all have their respective national currencies, they're going to have their new reserve currency that's what's called a basket, which is kind of like an average of their national currencies.
Mhm.
um, but they have already stated, especially Russia and China have publicly stated, that they're looking for a settlement tool, meaning something other than their actual currency that can settle between all these transactions. And that's where blockchain comes in, and where I think XRP is the one that is the most well positioned to fulfill that role and be that, basically, that bridge in the future, you could say, new earth economy.
Mm, okay. But it's going to be all gold backed currencies in these countries.
Yeah, so the national currencies are going to be gold backed. At least the BRICS currency will. I'm not sure about the individual national currencies, but the BRICS reserve currency will be precious metal backed.
Wow.
And they're supposed to make a larger announcement about this on the 22nd of August. So coming up pretty soon. And that's great timing with everything going on with the settlement too. I think
Yeah.
this is kind of a major catalyst or marker point for some major positive changes that are going to be inbound over the next 6 months to couple of years.
Yeah. That would be huge, transferring back to precious metal based currency. No more printing money, if the United States actually ever got into that, Federal Reserve goes away with all that stuff. And I remember a David Wilcock documentary. He was talking about all the like trillions of dollars of gold that's like in China and these different countries that is on lockdown that no one knows about, that the secret family 13 families of the world are in control of. And if people knew about that and had access to it, there's more than enough gold to actually back the money in the world, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
So that's
I
exciting.
think doesn't Benjamin Fulford like goes hard heavy into that stuff. I think he's one guy that talks about that too.
Mhm. Yeah, I've seen his work before. Yeah, yeah. And like, obviously none of us really know the truth or the extent of what that could be, but obviously there is, money that's been hoarded and kept by like dynasty families, hidden gold and things like that. So, there's a lot of theories about like Nasara, Jasara. Are you guys familiar with that? Yeah. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of theories about that. And I think if that does happen, and if there is say, a redistribution of wealth to the people via these stolen assets, it's going to happen through something like XRP,
Mhm.
because we saw the way the stimulus checks were. Checks are a very old, kind of archaic technology, and you're relying upon these banks as the centralized figures, right?
Right.
So we're not going to be getting like checks in the mail. I think it's
Mm.
going to be coming on the blockchain, and it's instant. So what's beautiful about XRP is it's able to do any transaction, no matter how large, in 2 to 4 seconds. Could be billions of dollars, 2 to 4 seconds, and less than a penny in fees, even if it's $1 billion.
Wow.
Wow.
It,
That's
it
So
huge.
frees
can
everybody. It
you
frees all
can
the
you
friction.
can you break that down a little bit? How is XRP able to do that where and differentiate itself from the others? I guess. Good
Yeah,
question.
yeah. Good question. So let's compare it to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, you've probably heard of like Bitcoin mining, right? Where people have these big warehouses, they have all these computers.
Mhm.
It's kind of infamous for sucking up a lot of energy. I think there's a statistic like one Bitcoin transaction can run like thousands of houses for a day or something
Oh,
crazy.
jeez.
Um, yeah. So Bitcoin was kind of the prototype, and it's slow and it's expensive. It costs quite a bit to do transactions, and they usually take an hour or so or more to actually go through. And the reason why is because of the what's known as the consensus mechanism. So when it comes to blockchain, consensus of validation is the way that the blockchain actually validates that transactions are legitimate, because there's no, say, Bank of America or Wells Fargo to be like, okay, this is a legitimate transaction.
Right.
But it has to come from the decentralized, it has to come from the people. So basically you have validators, and these validators through these algorithms. um, well, let me back up. With Bitcoin, you have the miners, and the miners are the validators. So that's why they're doing all this mining. That's why they're spending so much on energy cost, because for every block they find, which takes a certain amount of energy, they get like a certain amount of Bitcoin. And so they make a profit for it. XRP does not use mining. It's a
Yeah.
much more green, efficient technology. You don't need a warehouse full of computers that are sucking up energy, solar panels, gas, all this stuff. All you
Yeah.
need is a computer.
Actually, I was just talking to a good friend of mine. He started a little warehouse for Bitcoin mining, and he was telling me about the electric bill. It's like through the roof, like insane. Like, and he's just breaking even just because it costs so much to pay the electricity bill.
Mm-hmm.
It's nuts. Yeah.
In the beginning, it was profitable because basically every 4 years, there's this event called the halvening, where the amount that the miners make halves itself. So the profit goes down for them every 4 years. So now it's becoming kind of not so practical to do. Um, but with XRP, there's no mining. So you just have the validators. The validators do not have a financial incentive, which is a big thing, because one of the biggest issues with Bitcoin is the corruption, specifically in China, where there are what are called mining pools, which are basically like people will get together, and there's basically like 4 to 5 top groups of mining pools who call all the shots. And it greatly reduces the decentralization of it. It increases the centralization, because you end up having like 4 or 5 groups that are probably also collaborating together, most of which are in China and are controlled by the Chinese government, you can see the problem there.
Right.
So with XRP, you don't have that friction, you don't have that energy. Basically the way that it does the consensus so that it can do it so quickly is it's a kind of algorithm that is open source. You can look into the code. I'm not a programmer, so I wouldn't be able to explain it on that level, but it involves a consensus algorithm that you can kind of think of like the internet, in that it's kind of like a cloud-based network, where the internet is not located in any one place. You have all these servers, different people are contributing to it. XRP is very similar.
Interesting. Okay.
Very
That
cool.
helps. Yeah.
And I guess also like in the big picture of this potential financial system being in place for a new way of doing transactions. Um, what do you feel like are the main benefits for humanity, as like on spiritual level, from our ability to connect as a community, and I guess ultimately where we might be going in our evolution on this planet with it,
Yeah. Yeah.
technology and
That's what I think it's really all about. Is it's not about making a bunch of money. It's about how this is going to impact us as divine sovereign beings of Earth. And so to kind of start from a 3D perspective and work our way up to a more higher consciousness perspective of it. In the more 3D perspective, the creator of XRP has said this: the freedom of finances is one of the most fundamental freedoms in our current world, because you are generally unable to exercise your other basic freedoms if you don't have freedom of finances. Meaning, if you're a Canadian trucker and you're trying to get across the country to
Right.
protest and they're shutting down your banks,
Yeah. Yeah. That was a big deal.
how are you
Jeez.
going to get gas, right? Like, so that's a big problem. And so once you have that freedom of finances, once anyone can basically be their own bank and take that sovereignty back, it opens up so many more doors. And in the more divine sense, in the higher consciousness, you could say like 5D New Earth sense, I see XRP as being literally like God's money, something close to the God consciousness in terms of its fractal nature of existence. And what I mean by that is, like earlier when I was describing the nodes and being like the internet and that kind of thing, it, and I explain this in my conscious crypto coaching program too, it resembles the fractals that we see throughout creation, including neurons in the brain is probably one of the best examples. No one neuron controls the brain, right? You don't have one neuron that's running the whole brain.
Right.
It's a cumulative effort.
Yep.
And it channels the consciousness then, right? Like the brain then channels that consciousness.
Yeah.
You can see it in like, go
I
ahead.
was going to say a good book is The Holographic Universe. I think it's David Talbot and that guy Baum or whatever his name is. But they talked about the brain, exactly what you just said, and how somebody barely had but like a tiny percentage left of his brain after surgery, but still all the function was there. So it kind of proves that fractal point you were talking about.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think basically we're moving from a system of, you could say, satanic inverted forms of creation in terms of our financial system, pyramid shaped, top down, feeding the 1% elite. We're moving out of that and we're moving into a system that is fully decentralized, like the brain, or like the planets in the solar system, or like the universe itself. And that is it's going to open up a lot of doors for how we're able to be of service to humanity and take our sovereignty back to do that. And a big part of this too is, I believe that we're basically, and this is kind of part of the Nasara Jasara timeline, but I believe we're going through what you could call a great transfer of wealth. And that's going to be people who are aligned with God, basically, who are in alignment with the divine, coming into synchronistically massive amounts of money because it's God's will to do so, so that we can be the change. And this is like one of the biggest things that I talk to my community about is like we've externalized change for so long, right? Like we're waiting for some president, we're waiting for some
Right.
CEO, some alien group, whatever, to come down and do the work for us. Like we
Right.
want to be saved. People are always like, I'm done with Earth. I'm tired. Get me out of here. Like take me back to the 5D, the 6D, you know?
Right.
And I believe that specifically XRP, but many other parts of this as well, are us being given those tools to take our divinity back and be the change we've been waiting for. And it aligns with a Hopi prophecy that says we are the ones we've been waiting for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. That's interesting because our grandfather quoted this Hopi prophecy in his book, I think in the beginning of the book. But I love that train of thought. I was going to say just to add to that because I love what you do, and you can maybe explain a little bit later how you came about all this in the first place because you're very obviously very spiritual and very in tune and in alignment with this, like, this new earth that we want to create and make it for the people like it should be, right? Like you said, XRP maybe is that because people start to gravitate. Your intention is so much more powerful than most people really realize. And when you internalize what you want, focus on the right intention, then God kind of works through you and it synchronistically kind of guides you to the right place. And I think that's what this XRP, it seems like, is doing, whether people really know what the whole foundation of it is or not. But that's kind of what I was going to ask too, is how do people kind of get this information about all, basic information that you get on all these coins and keeping up to date in the news and stuff? How did they get to come to realize the background behind it all and the
Mm.
latest and greatest? That's kind of another question that came up.
Yeah, like what's the best way to learn about all this stuff and get into it?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, I guess shameless plug. The first thing I would say is to join Conscious Crypto Academy because that's
right.
really what we're doing is we're taking, what could be years of research and that kind of stuff. And of course, everything is online. You can go teach yourself like I did.
Yeah.
It just takes time, and a lot of people are working full-time jobs. They have kids, they have family or parents they're taking care of. So where we really make it succinct and to the point and
Mm.
get you, where you want to be without having to spend years doing research.
Okay.
But
Okay.
if you want to take the research route, YouTube and Twitter, I would say, are the best platforms, specifically Twitter for up-to-date information. Twitter is very central for kind of crypto updates.
Okay.
YouTube is better for the education, like, watching videos and that kind of stuff. But there's
So
tons of content.
So I guess to make it more to make an analogy of like how we would look at the stock exchange and look at how the economic of the U.S. economy is doing, whatever, you would go and look at Bloomberg or you'd go to whatever financial news. But you're saying basically it's more or less it's social media and it's the people giving you this information. It's constantly
Yeah,
updating. Yeah.
exactly. That's such a great point too that I haven't quite thought about in that way that it's citizen journalism basically.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like you guys are doing. Like it's
Yeah.
for the people by the people. And of course there's still news outlets and this stuff that are reporting on it, but
Mm.
um the irony is that most people in the crypto community interpret the news outlets as being the opposite of what's actually going to happen.
Right.
So the news
Exactly.
outlet is like
Yeah.
there's this guy named Jim Cramer who runs a show called Money Matters that's been around forever, right? He's a
Yeah.
meme in the crypto community because literally everything he says, the opposite comes true. So people take it as like reverse financial advice almost.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's
That's
awesome.
funny.
Yeah, it's a by the people for the people kind
Okay.
of information system.
Yeah.
That helps.
I,
That helps a lot. Yeah.
I can totally vouch for the Conscious Crypto Academy, though. It's definitely a streamlined approach to really get you in there. Like when I started, I mean, the modules are awesome. So much detail and explanation, step by step on, different wallets you need and exchanges and what the definitions of everything are. So, I mean, I was completely unfamiliar with all of it. And I feel so much more confident with it in just a very short amount of time. So, I had been interested in it for years, but I didn't know where to start or where to go or where to look, or there were so many. It just seems so out there. It's like hard to grasp, and it's like I'm not going to be confident doing anything in this until I really educate myself, which I never had time for. So it was really perfect. Yeah, well done.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I've spent since early 2020 into 2019, almost every day, just hours of research and a
Wow.
lot of time and love into, figuring it out and then wanting to share that with others so they can also, be a part of this movement and the opportunities that are available right now.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for doing what you're doing. I surely want to, maybe give it a try too. My brother's plugged in already, and I think it's going to be definitely helpful.
For
I
sure.
kind of I'm looking at XRP today, and I'm like, oh my God, why didn't I just kind of know a little bit more just a couple weeks ago? Actually, I just stumbled across like a random Michael Jaco video,
Oh yeah.
the Intuitive Warrior. He's that Navy SEAL, really, really cool guy to follow. And he happened to have someone on talking about XRP and just stuff in general on that type of crypto stuff, which I don't think he's an expert. He's like everybody just trying to get into information, but they were just saying, no, these millionaires, all these people are starting to plug in and they're putting in big numbers into XRP. And I was like, okay, I'll try to jump in a little bit, I guess. So, but
Yeah, today alone, it was the price after this, court ruling came out. The price last time I checked before this call was up almost 80% in less than 6 hours. And it
yeah,
was the equivalent of like $30 billion moving into the market. So basically, the green light went up and the big money started flowing in. Um,
that's
and
pretty
yeah,
amazing. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
still tracking it now. Right now, it's at 78%. So it's
yeah.
still hanging up there. Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of doing a little sideways right now, finding a balance. But when you brought up Michael Jaco, one thing I thought of was like, I think he's talked about like the term quantum financial system, right?
hmm
So I thought maybe it would be a good idea to kind of tie that into this because a lot of XRP content creators use that phrase, QFS, quantum financial system,
right.
and it is tied in kind of with this Nasara Jasara energy, but I feel like Nasara Jasara is more focused on what we're going to do to kind of have retribution or fix the wrongs, redistribution of wealth. We don't know if it's actually going to happen, maybe something similar will happen, but it might not be called Nasara Jasara or something like that. Um, but the aspect of the QFS, quantum financial system, I think is more tangible in that we can see kind of more direct evidence of where it's going. And basically, what I interpret the quantum financial system is the ability to move value of any kind to anyone around the planet or even to another planet is instantaneously and easy it is to send a text message.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's just like the kind of the foundation of it. But then it's going to open up so many, it's going to be this new age of the way information and value, kind of like how the internet impacted us, um, is going to be this way that this quantum financial system, and I guess the example that I give the most often to kind of, visualize how this could work is, the if you wanted to say move a bar of gold right now, like, or even cash, like the fastest way to move cash if you're not linked up to the same bank would be to literally like get on a plane and fly it to your destination. It's going to be quicker than doing a wire, right? It's going to take 5 days.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so the example I give is like, you know, in the future, like I was saying, the banks are going to have to step up their game and provide these better services to people. So I believe they're going to go back to being actual reserves of currency like they're supposed to be. Like they pretend to be, but they aren't
Right.
really. They don't have actual reserves for what they say they do. There's all this quantitative easing, all this funny business. So
Right.
imagine being able to take a bar of silver or gold and you go to your local bank, say, I don't know, Bank of America or something, and you're like, hey, I want to send this bar of gold to my friend Joe on the other side of the planet in England. And I need it there in like 10 minutes. Like I can't wait any longer. He needs it, or like it's a family member, right? It could be like immigration, family, they need to send money back home, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Basically what the bank will do is they'll take that bar of gold or silver, they'll put it in their reserves. They will translate that into digital gold or silver, which they will then swap instantly into XRP. That XRP will then be sent to the receiving bank, who is already set up to work and receive XRP. They'll get it in 2 to 4 seconds. They will then liquidate that into the digital gold and then into the physical bar gold. So they'll get that, digital gold, they'll go to the back, their reserves, get the bar gold out, give it to your friend Joe. And within just like a few minutes, you've basically quantumly sent some gold across the planet.
Wow.
Nice. That's awesome.
That,
Yeah.
that would be nice. And they actually have the reserves of, the precious metals that they claim to have, or, when it's there, it's there. So that would be nice if they actually are honest about it, right? That's
Yeah.
nice.
And if it's not the legacy banks that do that, some new group is going to step up, because that is a massive need that people would definitely have a demand and a use for.
Right.
And I think it really exemplifies that, like, crypto, in the respect that I'm talking about it, particularly with like XRP, is not like a gold replacement like Bitcoin. Often people will say, Bitcoin's the new gold. You don't need gold. You've got Bitcoin. And you're
Yeah.
going, what? Like they don't even do the same thing. Like I
Right.
like gold for the physical utility of it, right? Or like jewelry or whatever. Like Bitcoin is not gold. So a lot of people get this conception that like the crypto world in general is taking us away from the fundamentals of like precious metals and stuff like that. And the way I see it is that XRP and the kind of ecosystem of cryptos that will be also related to it, because it won't be just XRP, there will be an ecosystem, and they will all be um, not directly backed by gold, but able to be easily liquidated into gold at any moment.
Mm.
And the reason you wouldn't want them directly backed by gold is that that would require a centralized figure, right? That would require a bank or a central bank or a government to actually do the backing. So
Right.
what's better is that you have this decentralized system. It's not directly backed, but everyone in the world, or most of the world, agrees to accept this currency. So it becomes the new bridge currency. And then because of the speed of it and the low transaction fees, you'll be able to turn it into whatever precious metal or commodity or natural resource or whatever it is that you want, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. You mentioned like having a network of, you know, besides XRP, other players in the mix that may be doing that, and like acting as a bank for, if it's not like a traditional bank. Um, Made me think of the Infinite TV coin Zadkill that is in the works now, and he has a whole platform, his I2 payment system, where it's, you can trade gold and silver on there as well. It's 100% insured. It's one of the few ones that is, was it H bar that insured it? Derek, do you recall?
I'm not
Uh,
sure that it's sure. No,
Not,
but
not H bar. I'm thinking of something else. The Hux. I don't remember what it is, but they fully insured, everything on there. So it's an exciting opportunity. I'll have to give you the information, Jay, so you can check it out and see what you think about it. Um,
Sure.
but yeah,
yeah,
I can
have
see
you
that
heard
being
much
fun.
about that yet, or not really?
I get his emails, so I've seen some of his emails talking about it, but I haven't done a deep dive into what the specifics of it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
He did a good interview, talking about Eri Beckman, the founder of Invent TV. He did a good interview with, I forget who it was, but I'll send it to you. It's like, it kind
I
of
think
goes
his
into
name's
a lot of detail.
Alex Zek. Last name was like Zek or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, send it to me. I'll check it out for sure.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I guess, this is exciting to see these things play out. And finally, I know if you've been following like the white hat movement and, 17 and all this stuff over the years, and the Jasara stuff, this sounds like something actually tangible that could be part of that. And like you said, be a key piece of that agenda moving forward. Um, and so I just asked, what is your take on the current, political and world scene with the white hats and what's going on and the players in it, and uh, your thoughts on that, current events and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question. I think,
There's a lot going on. Yeah.
yeah, I think most likely, I honestly think XRP is intimately tied into the white hat operation, and specifically Space Force and Starlink, and it kind of being the not only Starlink being the backup internet to the Cabal internet, so that if and when they shut down the Cabal internet, like we've been hearing kind of threats and theories about for years, if that
Yeah.
does happen and there's some kind of blackout, Starlink, whether or not you're a fan of it or not, will people will have access to internet, if Elon obviously isn't a part of that and decides to shut that down too. But the synchronicities in the message that I've been getting is that he is aligned with the positive timeline, that there is this kind of collaboration between the Space Force, XRP, Starlink, SpaceX, and it's also connected to Trump and BRICS. And okay, you guys are familiar with 17, right?
Right, right.
So there's in the XRP community, there is a similar type of phenomena that are known as the Ripple Riddlers. And these guys came basically on Twitter in the early days of XRP 2017, 2018, and they started dropping all these puzzles and coded things. And a lot of them have predicted world events accurately before they happened. So, for instance, there was a tsunami in Auckland, New Zealand, a year or 2 years ago ish. And one of those guys, one named Mr. Poole, had predicted it in the days before and have also predicted trends in the market, world events, things like that. So, one of the themes that I've seen put out by them is this connection that XRP is going to be the way that we basically create world peace and stop World War III, which we're basically in right now. I think we're in World War III. I don't think it's going to be like this World War II style, fighting with guns kind of thing.
Mhm.
Maybe,
Right.
in certain places like the war in Ukraine and stuff. But like for the most part, it's psychological warfare.
Infiltration.
Spiritual. Yep. So I think I feel in resonance with this theory or idea that's been put out by these groups, that this will be the catalyst for creating world peace and ending the economic sanctions and all this BS stuff that is kind of feeding the psychological warfare, World War III narrative.
Mhm.
I don't think we're going to go to nuclear war or anything crazy like that. I think there might be scares of it, but I think we're divinely protected. I mean, I think that we've seen direct evidence of like off-world intelligence deactivating nuclear arsenals and UFOs and things.
Our grandfather
Deactivating.
actually talks about that directly in his book. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, and I loved hearing you guys talk about him and everything that he experienced and everything. That was so cool. Like so much resonance and synchronicities with that.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, I think it's I just feel like the puzzle pieces are all going to fall into place in a way that we can't even fathom yet. That it's going to be so many people are in fear and it sucks, but I think there's a really good chance that things are going to turn out really well and that it's going to happen really fast, and that especially when this QFS system kicks off, it's going to put the money in the hands of the right people. And as soon as that happens, I think we're going to be able to start undoing the damage that's been done for so long, like overnight. Like I think within a matter of days, weeks, months, definitely years, we're going to see major changes in the way the world runs. I mean, imagine forever the people with the most money in the world have used it to divide and separate people, right? So imagine now it's being used to bring people together and fund actual humanitarian projects, not like BS, fake, philanthropic, Red Cross type like
Bill and
stuff.
Melinda Gates Foundation. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And then with that, you get like I think the free energy, like people having like I resonate with the idea that there's going to be like a device that you'll be able to put in your home that will power your home, whatever it's powered by, some kind of ether, Tesla type technology. I think that's all going to come out with this. And I think it's really going to launch us into the, I guess, in the law of one terms, the fourth density, and kind of community terms, the 5D new age earth.
Right. Right. I was just listening to one of your recent show episodes or that you put out there, and I love how you just randomly bring in the law of one and start talking about that, and you kind of help people that don't know what it is understand that it's the channeled information from the 80s and that whole thing. And I think we first got a hold of it or knew of it from David Wilcock, and he kind of really promoted it a lot. But I love that stuff. I love that I'm just kind of curious too, like your background in general and how you kind of got to where you are now, and how you followed that path of synchronicity and whatever else that might come with it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say my primary awakening started shortly after I entered college, which was 2013. I started college. And, college party environment, I was getting into smoking weed, trying psychedelics, these kind of things. I was going to music festivals, taking mushrooms, trying
Sure.
DMT, LSD, and I guess you could say it blew my third eye open, to a point where I just couldn't look back. Like I was no, I guess one of my experiences was like taking DMT for the first time and basically having um, a death experience. I guess you could say ego death, but when you're going through it, it feels like you're actually dying.
Right.
And I felt like I died, and I felt like I saw that death was beautiful and that it was not this thing to fear. And that even though now it's hard to kind of tap into that space, you kind of fall back into the like, fears of life and things like that. But I can still tap into that moment and kind of get that feeling back. But like it showed me that we really have nothing to fear. The highest thing that people fear is fear of death, typically.
Right.
And that's like actually a really beautiful thing. So that was major. And then what I went to college for was aerospace engineering. So
Cool.
this is why I really resonate with, everything that you guys talk about with your grandpa.
Yeah.
Um, I had a lot of strange experiences, but I basically I started waking up partially from Dr. Stephen Greer's first disclosure movie that
Yep.
really did a lot for me.
Yeah, that
Um,
was our grandfather
really,
was a part of that. He was one of the witnesses there. Yeah.
oh, that's right. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all tied together. He was instrumental in like kind of connecting what I was learning in college about the secret space program stuff
Mm.
to what I was kind of getting from psychedelics with the consciousness stuff and merging them, bringing them together. And like, I'll give you like a short story about one of the things I experienced in college that kind of woke me up. So there was a professor in my aerospace department, who is known as the father of the F-22 fighter jet. He was the main project manager, designer, all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
And F-22 is still considered like pretty much the
Yeah.
best fighter jet of all time, even better than the F-35, they say.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and I mean that's what they say. They say it can outperform it in certain maneuvers and stuff. And there's theories that, even back then it had ET technology in it.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, I've heard theories that like kind of like the B-2 bomber, that there was well, one of the things I heard actually from like within my department was that they were like basically would create this, they would like electrically charge the surface of the B-2 bomber,
Mhm.
and it would basically create little to no friction.
I've heard of that. Yeah. I
So
remember
it was
hearing
able
about
to just go through the air without having all this drag. But then I think that's the tip of the iceberg. Like I think there's
that.
gravity mass reduction
Right.
technology on there, that kind of thing. But anyway, this professor, he worked for Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, and which I'm sure most of your listeners probably know, but Skunk Works is the advanced aerospace division of Lockheed Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah, the black
And
projects and stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, the black projects, all the UFO, back engineering kind of stuff.
Yep.
And he managed several projects that were classified within Skunkworks, and he was doing this back in the 70s and or 70s or 80s, and this was 2013, and he still had many projects that he could not talk about that were still classified from that era. And
Hmm.
he basically had a model on his desk for every aircraft or spacecraft that he managed. They would give him a little model as like a, token of gratitude or whatever. And
Wow.
so he had like an F-22 and like F-117 or whatever. And then he had like 5 black rocks. And so he would explain to the students that these black rocks were the black projects in the classified programs. And then he
Wow.
would play videos of basically Project Aurora, TR3B conspiracy, like kind of YouTube videos. He'd play it for students and
No way.
basically allude to that he worked on that, but he's like,
Yeah.
I can't say anything, but like he
That's
would play
awesome.
it.
That's crazy. What was you? Can you say the professor's name? Who it was?
Um, uh, I think it was Bob Wright. Is
Right.
was his
Okay.
name. Yeah,
If
yeah.
I had gone to university where I knew like that was my professor, I would have definitely taken aerospace and like kept
Yeah.
going. I, I only did like an intro class because I was a mechanical engineer, but I was like, I did the intro class, and to me, I was just like, why are we just talking about like, thrust and lift and using scramjet technology when there's like so much more stuff? It's like,
Exactly, dude. I
yeah,
that's I got so depressed because of that. Like doing
yeah,
all this ridiculously hard math for something that I'm like, this is old dumb technology. Like
yeah,
you're gonna work my brain to its end to do something that we have a way better tech for. Like it was miserable. So for that
right.
reason, I ended up dropping out in my literally my 5th year. I dropped out.
Oh
Um,
wow,
and it was a hard decision, but looking back on it, it was the best, I think the best decision, one of the best decisions I've made because it led me to then being more confident in myself, investing energy and time into myself, and doing what I was really passionate about.
yeah,
So, yeah.
cool,
That's
man.
awesome. Yeah.
It's good to know. Yeah, I was curious. Yeah, and so you definitely had a spiritual awakening and kind of thing happen around
Yeah.
the college time frame. Okay.
Yeah. So my spiritual awakening was really catalyzed through all that experience and the psychedelics. And then near the end of college is when or around the middle is when I found David Wilcock and the Law of One. And that's what really catalyzed me into my spiritual awakening and like remembering, you know, kind of my soul essence, not necessarily like past life stuff, but just like that divine remembrance of like, I am, right? Like nothing
Yeah,
can, mess with me kind of thing. Um,
definitely.
and yeah, the Law of One, I really have disliked I don't usually read for fun. Like it's never really been a thing.
Sure.
I don't know if I have some mild form of dyslexia, but I get overwhelmed by text and I just like it's hard for me to stay focused on text.
Yeah, yeah,
But the Law of One, I had no problems with. I was like so engaged. It was so effortless and to flow through and read. And I felt like it was just like an
wow.
extension in a
It's like
way.
a download almost when you read it. Like you're just like, this seems right, right? It seems right.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Cool.
So that was probably the biggest catalyst to my spiritual awakening. And then, I got into like Corey Good, David Wilcock, Cosmic Disclosure.
Yeah.
Um, I started going to disclosure conferences. I was working for disclosure conferences with my partner Alexis. Um, we worked for like Dimensions of Disclosure. I don't know if you guys are familiar with
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, so we had like a whole outdoor booth that we ran at Dimensions of Disclosure, and we were like living with the woman who was hosting the event, and um, there was just a lot of learning. And then of course, you know, in the following years, in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of drama around all that, and it's been very interesting to see, kind of how the community has handled the division.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, it's been a big kind of catalyst for the healing of the community, I think, because it's forcing us to like deal with some some differences in opinion and uncomfortable maybe thoughts and things like that, but ultimately inspiring us to realize what we have in common and not to let these external things mess with us
Yeah.
as humans.
That's such a good point. I just want to mention that in the UFO or just a general disclosure movement and all these conferences, we could feel that building up and we could see kind of the tension. Even in 2019, the big one for us was Contact in the Desert. And the first one that me and my brother were able to go to together and really enjoy seeing so many people all together at once. And it was like a culmination right before 2020 and the COVID and all that stuff. So I felt like something was about to bust open, like something was a big change was about to happen, whether it positive or negative, I don't know, but I felt it there. I was just like, there's too many good things happening here that can't help but there's got to be some result of this, and there's got to be something that comes from this. And I was like, this will never happen again. Meaning at the time, I was just like, well, this could never happen again because the venue wouldn't be able to take the amount of people that'll start flooding in, wanting to be a part of this community. And that's exactly the time that, the pandemic and everything shut down, lockdown. I was like, wow, what perfect timing to help, stop that momentum we had. Right. So
Yeah. It did feel like there was going to be like some major breakthrough. And then it felt like there was, I mean, ultimately, I know it's all divine influence, even if it's perceived as negative, but it felt like there was um, maybe some groups or that came in and tried to break apart the community and create drama and like turn people against each other. And it was weird to see this tribe that was like these tribes that were coming together, these communities and everything. And then it just like kind of collapsed on itself. And everyone's just like, what happened? And then, like you said, COVID and everything came in and
right.
it was
And then
weird.
you get these flat earth theories and all these crazy psyops going on. So people just don't know what to believe. There's all the what you call deep fakes that are happening now. So like, of course, it complicated things a lot, and it made people wake up, I think, much faster for those that were already on that kind of frequency level. Like they
Yeah.
started to see, okay, this is it's obvious for us. For me, I was like, oh my god, this is obviously been planned for a long time. Here we go. Here comes like agenda, whatever. They're gonna start, just yeah, all those steps, all those things that like Bill Cooper and all these crazy conspiracists and David Icke, all these people knew was coming, and there it goes. You just see the playbook being, just one after the other, the next event. So yeah, I don't know. For those who are ready to wake up, I think it's made us come together. But you see where there is obviously division and on purposely done, for that purpose. But
Yeah.
I think we're in a
And
good spot.
ultimately, like one of the things that I've been reading a lot in the Law of One lately is like how things like psychic attacks, which you can apply to the personal level, or like you could say even this is a psychic attack on a mass level in a way, what everything we were just talking about, and how like psychic attacks, if you look at them as opportunities to see where you are not fully connected with God, and you then give, whatever that force, entity, whatever, you give it gratitude for serving you and serving the one infinite creator
Mm-hmm.
for, bringing you closer to God. And it's like a superpower against psychic attacks. Whereas a lot of people I noticed will kind of like fall into the like pity party of it, I guess. Like, very victimized, like, oh, I'm getting psychically
Exactly.
attacked. I can't do anything about it, like all this stuff. And it becomes this victim state that we've seen so much in the current world where people love to feel victimized. It's almost like a drug.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Totally.
like me too, me too. I want to jump on and
Yeah.
whatever the rainbow colors and all sorts of stuff that we don't want to talk about, but it's in our face all the time. Yeah,
Yep.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
The other good positive thing, like just talking about disclosure, was this movie Sound of Freedom that just came out, which I just watched, and I recommend everybody, be aware of what it is. Go see it. Go buy a ticket, just so it builds awareness, and that's the whole idea. So people know there's this whole other underground network of child trafficking and all this exploitation of. It's really slavery. It's modern day slavery. And you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to know this is happening, right? So but it took like 5 years for that movie to even come out. So like the fact that it's coming out now says a lot as to the changes, right, in a positive way that must be taking place. And
Yep.
they can't stop it. They can't stop things like that from happening. So
It's a
yeah, that's
domino effect. It's just
yeah,
gonna collapse in on itself until the wave of momentum is so great that nothing's gonna get in God's way, source's
yeah,
way, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I'm really
definitely.
excited about that movement and just exposing people to all this. And the timing is great because like the extremes you were talking about that are waking people up, it's done so bad. And it's like now this other stuff comes forward and it all kind of clicks together and makes sense. And I think it's really like a mass awakening for people. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, I still gotta go see it. I've heard that weird things are happening, like that did you experience anything weird, like your AC being out in the theater? I saw a bunch of stuff about like specifically AMC theaters were like trying to get people to not finish the movie. So they was
Really?
like, I saw dozens of people on Twitter saying the AC was out. They kept the lights on for the movie the whole time. People were having to like yell at the managers, turn the lights off. One of them was saying they like rewound the movie and then fast forwarded it and like didn't even go to the right part and like all this like nonsense.
Oh,
Like
wow.
they
Oh
just don't
wow.
want people to finish it.
I wouldn't doubt it. Luckily, nothing like that happened when I watched it. But I mean, I just want to prepare people. Like, it's gonna make you tear up. You're gonna cry probably a few times. Like, if you have a soul and if you have a heart, like, there's no way you can't go through that movie without feeling the emotion in that. So it's tough for a lot of people to probably sit through. But again, it's so important for us to see that. Yeah.
I
For
heard
sure.
that's what it does really well is like bring emotion to something that we've only really intellectualized, or that most people have only really like had a mental understanding of, but this movie like brings it to the heart and makes you really feel the impact of it instead of just like knowing it.
Yeah, yeah. It's incredible. And it's one of those things that for a lot of people, there's a lot. It feels like even the actor Jim Caviezel at the end, he does a speech and says, this will probably. The last thing I want after this movie is for you to have go into a fear-based, mentality. Though what we should do is know that there's hope because we are the change. We can create that change. So, and that's what the awareness is about, and just even just talking about it and not just like putting it under the rug anymore because we can't let all the cockroaches stay under the rug. Like, this is where they're all crawling out and they're scattering, and like this is the time to bring out the darkness to the light and
Yeah.
finally get rid of it. So
We are the ones
I,
we've been waiting for.
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And then the fact that it's coming out in a movie is so powerful because it has the ability to touch us emotionally versus coming out like in a political platform where someone's just talking about it and it's not really connecting and you don't really, get that feeling about it that really inspires people and calls people to action. And yeah, it is awesome that they have these organizations out there like it's OAR that are, doing these sting operations and infiltrating these networks and bringing them down. And we can actually
yeah,
support them. So it's really exciting to have this movement here. Yeah.
right,
It is really cool that they got it in the theaters too, because like you're saying, like it has so much more of an emotional impact on the big screen. And traditionally they've used that to program us in the other direction,
Yeah.
into fear
exactly,
and all this other stuff. So now it's like, yeah, I guess you
Beeping
could
at
say
their
fighting
game.
fire with fire or just getting the
Yeah.
medicine that's right for, what trauma they inflicted.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Very cool.
No, so okay, so at the end, there's probably all sorts of things we can keep going into. Is there any? I was gonna say that we can touch upon. Like, what's your take maybe on like the RFK kind of thing, or even what he's doing? But also, we were gonna say maybe about 107, what your take was on
Hmm.
him. There's a
Yeah,
lot
Yeah,
of talk.
I was
Go
curious
ahead.
because we had an interview with Carrie Cassidy and she she's on this kick where she's talking to 107 and she truly believes that she has a lot of research that she's done that he is JFK Jr. like the Kennedy family and like the White House side and it's all Trump stuff and then you have RFK coming in with I mean I've been watching some of the interviews that he's been doing and he's going about it really, really intelligently as far as getting out there on the different platforms, not the social media, but really connecting with people and what he stands for. It's like he wants to go back to where his uncle was and his dad was as far as politically and trying to get this back to a sovereign country again. And I'm really impressed with all the stances that he's taking and things like that. So it kind of makes it complicated, though, if you think about the timeline that the White Hat's been talking, the whole that stuff. So yeah, what is your take on all that?
Yeah, it's super fascinating to me. I kind of feel like it's part of the plan, so to say.
Mhm.
Like to me, it felt like, obviously Trump came in and took over the Republican Party and basically detoxed it in a way, right? Like he took over and made it his own thing. It was
Mhm.
a whole military strategy of, I think, realizing that instead of running as an independent, it's easier to get the support of a party and then show them the truth and help
Yeah.
them, spiritually align. And now it feels like RFK Jr. is doing that for the left. So like
Mm,
the right had that
Exactly.
with Trump, and this is and then so it's like
that's
I'm noticing all the people, like especially California, New York type people who are good, genuine people, but they just did not like Trump because they did, have a lot of them like that media bias, still listen to the mainstream media, even if they had good hearts and good intentions and things like that. A lot of those kind of people are now supporting RFK Jr. And of course, he's talking about so many great things that even Trump isn't totally talking about. He's kind of filling in the spaces, like the
Yeah.
anti-vaccine stuff. I know Trump has, been vocal about that in the past, but especially with
But
Operation Warp Speed, there's been some controversy. So he's kind of
what?
like filling in the gaps there. And
yeah.
I find that he appeals to that personal nature of people,
Yeah,
whereas Trump appeals to the inner warrior.
right. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's so well
RFK
put.
Jr.
Yeah,
is
I
like
agree.
he's like the, I don't know,
Let
like,
love rule, not like hate and division. Like, yeah, he does
Yeah,
yeah,
that a lot,
he's
which
the
is good.
lover archetype versus the warrior, like you said, and that always bothered me, though, the Operation Warp Speed with Trump and everything. And um, there was a
Mhm.
time RFK mentioned that I heard this a couple of years ago when it happened, that Trump had the opportunity to go along with him on the what to do about COVID and everything, and he went with the big pharma and Fauci versus his when originally RFK Jr. was there to give that advice and to be that type of advisor, but I don't know what the motive was, but it always stood out for me and kind of was like, I don't get that part of the story, why would it was necessary.
same. I haven't been able to fully wrap my head around it. I have theories, but like, yeah, it's been kind of confusing.
As far as Trump promoting the wars,
Yeah,
yeah, Operation
Yeah,
Warp
like I guess the theory that I've heard the most that kind of justifies it, that does make sense to me, is that this was, and it's awesome that we can talk about this, even that like, this isn't like YouTube.
Speed.
um,
yeah,
that this their plan was going to be to have this bioweapon, that it was going to be, I think, a lot worse than it really ended up being, or at least that what was going to be worse was the vaccine rollout that they had planned.
Mhm.
So I think they were going to have a longer vaccine rollout, possibly. That might have taken like I've heard a theory that there was some kind of like 9-year plan to do this. But that what Trump did was kind of force their hand early in doing this Operation Warp Speed and really threw off their momentum and their specifics of the plan. And along with that, I've heard that it's possible that a lot of the vaccines were like just saline or something like that. Not all of them necessarily, because
Right,
obviously there's
right.
some weird stuff going on with the blood clotting and the died suddenly, type
Sure,
stuff.
sure.
But I don't know if that's true, obviously, but it resonates with me that it could be possible, and it does fill in the blanks in a way.
Yeah, yeah. I think there might be some truth to that. Maybe it was like the longer term plan, whether they would have really gotten the ingredients just right and gotten everything to where everybody could have been possibly infected. But in this way, it was like people caught on a little bit quicker and said, "All right, this you think this is working, but it's obviously not." There's so yeah, that's one aspect. I think you're right, and Trump too. Like I don't know. I'm sure there's sides of him. Maybe he's more of a business guy, whatever. But also, who knows? When you become president and you want to do make all these changes, and then you got somebody breathing down your neck that says, You know, we could take out you and your whole family if you do not do this, whatever this is, you know. And I think he was able to get away with a lot, and he did. But maybe with that point, maybe that's one thing that he didn't really have much choice of. That might be another case.
Yeah.
But I'll just tell you this about RFK Jr. I mean, this guy, he is the conspiracy theorist of any president that's come out. I mean, if you listen to what he says, it's like, oh my God, it's like he's part of our movement, like
Yeah.
literally. So it's like, I really hope, you know, I really hope that, well, I think he already is making a big difference, just getting the word out and getting out there. But I hope they don't take him out. Honestly, like I'm afraid like they
I
might try to
know.
take him out just
I
because of
feel
the,
like he's gonna stick around. If
yeah.
I had to guess, that my feeling is that he's gonna make it, and I hope that they don't. Well, obviously, like what you're saying, take him out, but like I hope they don't rig the primary of
Mm,
any chance of him to, get uh like if we had Trump v. RFK Jr., that would be incredible. Like we'd have an
yeah.
actual genuine election for the first time in probably ever, where like
Right.
both sides genuinely want to help humanity, but we're going to decide as a collective which is the better way to go. That's how it should be.
Yeah,
That
definitely.
would be pretty amazing. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, we'd have we'd have a win-win, you know, no matter what. And I think it, like to your point, and to like what could happen, what's going to happen, what they're going to have to do, the deep state and the cabal and people that are not running the Biden show, like they're going to have to somehow make it seem legit that Biden has more votes and support than RFK Jr. And just right there, if the Democratic Party sees what's going on within their own party, that there's
Exactly.
obviously this fraudulent stuff, it has nothing to do with Republicans. So then, you know, I think it'll help wake up a lot of people right there as well.
Yeah,
And
that's a
I
great
think
point.
I think they saw it with Bernie, and
Yeah.
Hillary, and that woke up a lot of the Democrats. And if it
Yeah.
happens again, like, yeah, it's going to catalyze so much more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
looking pretty good. I think we're in a good position.
And
Yeah.
he's looking good at 70 or whatever it is. You see him
Yeah.
He's
working
amazing.
out,
Yeah,
like he's
Yeah.
jacked. That was
exactly.
Exactly.
crazy.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
doing some kind of pull-up contest with Russell Brand or something. Like he's in
I heard
Yeah.
about that.
really good shape.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty fun.
Even if he's on like TRT or something, like he's doing
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah. Have you what was that? I just recently watched the documentary by Mickey Wills,
Oh, The Great
The Great
Awakening.
Awakening.
Oh
Have you
yeah.
seen that yet, Jace?
Yeah, yeah, that was great. That was
That was
fantastic.
awesome. That's another one where I really hope people can see that and wake up to what's going on. It's such a great documentary, just really going into the history of the communist world and the parallels of what's happening right now, and people just don't see it or aren't connecting the dots. But it's incredible, like the
Yeah.
history through it, and really eye opening.
Yeah. Yeah. And that all these like documentaries and movies are coming out at like pretty much the same time. Like I think Mel Gibson is supposed to be coming out with something else too, some kind of trilogy, right?
I think that's a trafficking one as well. Yeah, like Sound of Freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it do you know if it's supposed to be sequels to Sound of Freedom or like a totally unrelated thing?
I think it might be a different one, like a different story, but similar kind of circumstance potentially. I think it has to do with actually Ukraine stuff. It's pretty relevant, like a recent story based on a true story, apparently. Yeah.
And that reminds me that like, and this might be what you're talking about, but like a ton of stuff has been coming out about the biolabs in Ukraine, whistleblowers talking about them being basically harvesting facilities. Like,
Ah,
did you see
okay.
any of those videos of like there was like maybe he was Russian, like a Russian soldier, and it was translated, but he was talking about like he was just horrified talking about what they found in some of these
Oh, wow.
facilities, like the horrors of humanity that they're doing to the kids and that kind of stuff.
Harvesting.
Yeah, Oregon, yeah,
Yeah.
that side of it. That makes sense. That I didn't know that, but that makes a lot of sense. And all the money being funneled to Ukraine. I mean, why else, you know? Obviously war stimulates the military industrial complex and keeps that machine running, but there's so many more nefarious things that are happening, and why it's certain areas are targeted for sure, and deals
Mm.
taking place and all that stuff. But like you said, Great Awakening is amazing video, a movie that's the third of like the pandemic series that Mickey Wills was doing, but it has that third one has nothing to do with the pandemic because that's kind of done. And he said, well, I always wanted to say this information and get it out to the public, but it was never the right time. But now we're at that time where I can share this, and it goes so into the communist side. And that's what you were saying about World War III is taking place right now. It's a war on our consciousness. It's happening by infiltration of within the country. The fighting, like Eisenhower said in his farewell speech, saying, fighting against enemies both foreign and domestic. And I mean that infiltration from within is what we have been dealing with all this time, and it's obviously in our face, but that movie spells it out very nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I feel like what's going on in the communist countries right now, China and Russia specifically, I feel like and I could be wrong about this, but this is just my theory. I feel like they're going through a very similar thing that we were going through when Trump was president, and that Xi and Putin are kind of the Trumps of their respective countries. And that, we saw some evidence for that when in the CCP hall or whatever it is, I think this was 9 months ago ish, where I'm trying to remember his name, but it was the old Communist Party leader. I don't remember his name. After Mao, it was like Mao's
Zedong
follower.
oh yeah, no, it's Mao. I don't know.
It's a guy that's still alive that they basically arrested on TV in the CCP headquarters. And there's video of them, like basically security comes, picks this guy up, walk him out, and like he's just looking like terrified, like he knows what's going to happen to him. And like Xi Jinping is just like face down, like not even looking at him. The guy's like grabbing Xi's shoulder, like, don't let them take me, kind of thing.
Jeez.
And this guy's known for being like a war criminal, like, crimes against humanity, carrying on Mao's legacy, kind of thing. And that was kind of mostly hush hush, like media didn't report about that or talk about that. It was just kind of in the circles online. But that was like less than a year ago. And that was to me like a big signifier. And then of course there's a ton going on in Russia too. And I'm not saying Putin and Xi are necessarily great people. I don't know. But like I think that they are working on clearing out the more pure evil that is going on in their countries.
Right. Definitely. Yeah.
The good stuff. I love this conversation. I like, vetting through this because you don't really get to, I at least don't get to talk about this stuff a lot with people, I don't have a lot of community around me, where it's like-minded people could talk about things like this. So this is refreshing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I just go on live streams and just rant about it because it's hard to find people to talk about it too. This is great. I'm loving this conversation. Actually, like have a discussion back and forth is really fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it helps. Yeah, more of us need to do this, and I hope it's useful for other people. Yeah, I love how you bring in the UFO stuff too, and you're following that latest disclosure. And there's got to be a reason for the timing on a lot of this stuff as well. And I think you put that one. This guy from Zecker, I guess was his last name, Zecker, the one from Antarctica that had basically that huge facility that was supposed to just measure neutrinos, but it's it's obviously like transmitting energy as well, which could be used for so many things. And that's a huge one. And he's been around a while, actually. Out of all those that came out with Dr. Greer this past month, he had been on his own platform, has really been speaking out for some years now. So he's legit. He definitely he doesn't back down from what he's saying. Like he has evidence and everything else. So
the UFO phenomena right now is like, or not the phenomenon. Well, I guess the phenomena, but more the disclosure of it is mind blowing. Actually, like I'm surprised at like how quickly some of it's developing and how quickly like this guy, this whistleblower, Gersh, is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
He's already going into the discussions of right away of like, this is a non-physical phenomena, right? Like, or at least a good portion of it is like, these aren't necessarily all physical metal type of spaceships. Maybe some are, but some are interdimensional phenomena going on. And like for that already to be going into the mainstream and like before people can even really process like, okay, aliens are real, now they're already going into like, so it's accelerating, but people, I think, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm not too in touch with the average mainstream kind of person that watches like CNN, but at least in the communities that we're connected to, it feels like it's really taking a momentum more in the mainstream.
Yeah.
um and
Yeah, and there's a lot of narratives. Part you can point out, and tell when the mainstream narratives on UFOs are, specifically designed to tell some kind of story versus ones that may be more authentic. It's interesting. I'm hoping that some of the disclosures that are coming out now are from like the white hat side, and part of it is to help accelerate the advancement of the technology that is already existing, that it can be known to the people, and disclosing that part of it to kind of align with what we were talking about, Jayse, where where we're going as evolution in this as a consciousness. I think
Mhm.
I hope some of that is trickling through is from the right people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say
totally.
like that's what Grant Cameron always says. The consciousness is the key. That's the answer to all this alien stuff and how the spaceships work and how do do space and time and instantaneous this and that. Well, consciousness, that's what's how do you travel the fastest through time is through your mind. Consciousness is the answer. And like
Yes.
even flying the ships, like you fly with your mind, whether it's a physical object or not. You can
Mhm.
even do that with remote viewing. I remember you were talking about that as well. I mean, that concept, which there's a lot
Yes.
of backing of science and these three little agencies that use that and take that very seriously too. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep.
Uh,
And on that note, like pertaining to the law of one, something that I was reading about recently, and there was in regards to space travel like this versus, well, basically that there's kind of two main types of space travel in the universe. And the first is what we would typically think of as space travel, a physical ship, maybe doing some kind of light speed, warp speed type
right,
thing,
right.
but it's not 100% consciousness instant based. Whereas on the flip side, you have the internal travel, which is basically akin to the remote viewing or the
Mhm.
projection or whatever, where you can go anywhere in the universe, but you do it through like thought projection. And
Yeah.
they even explain like that's how they visited Earth in ancient Egyptian times, Ra, that
Yeah.
they didn't, it looked to the people of Earth that they came here in like bell shaped craft.
Hmm.
But and even when they got out and interacted with them, it was all like basically kind of holographic thought projections.
Well, interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that from the Law of One. They were talking about, the technology-based stuff, the mechanical stuff is more. That's where you see it in like the fourth density realm. But once you get to like fifth density, sixth density higher, it's all of like the energetic um, transportation through the universe is kind of the means that they do. It's like more advanced and
Yep.
um,
Yeah, they said it's like both ways are okay. Like both ways are seeking the light, if they're service to others, seeking God. But
Hmm.
the internal path is a much quicker, more expedited way to
Yeah.
source energy and
Right.
evolution. And the
Right.
other path, you'll get there, but it takes civilizations longer than ones who focus on the internal. And
Right.
you're right, like I think they said like by the end of fifth density, most groups have switched over to the internal
mm,
Yeah.
meditative kind of
Right.
travel.
I think you
yeah,
don't have a choice at fifth density or above. You have to be service to others. Otherwise, you have to be, in line with the divine source and because this, the single prime creator, whatever force is of love is just love and light. So if you think of that sense, you can't really go past those other higher levels without being attuned to that. But I
Yep.
think all that is so interesting how it just ties just the UFO stuff in general, people probably don't want to hear that are the aerospace nuts and bolts guys. So like, well, no, we need to be able to build this thing and like reverse engineer and use it for war or whatever. It's like, well, that's not what we're being shown. That's not what they're telling us. Why do you think that all these people have these contacts that are higher vibration or or these hippie people, but they're
Mhm.
like getting contacted all the time? Why do you think that's typically the case? Like there's a correlation here people have to start realizing, and that spiritual aspect of it is a huge part of it. Yeah, for
Yep.
sure.
Yep. Totally. And they say too, like that the majority of like physical external kind of contact experiences, like seeing a UFO in the sky, the majority of that is the service to self negative, like Orion groups, as they call it.
Right.
Um, and that basically, there is like this quarantine around the earth that they're not generally not able to get through. They liken it to being like a literal, like if we were to try to walk through a wall, it's kind of like
Right.
that, like the energy just won't allow it. But I guess
Mm.
they can find holes in the space time of the Earth's magnetic field and such, where
Mhm.
unpredictably and randomly some of these windows open up and they're able to slip in, and then
Right.
that's where they do this kind of contacts. And on the flip side, the positive service to other entities prefer not the flashy external
Yeah.
contact, but the more introspective.
Channeling, yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And why would you want to do a mass awareness, mass awake, or what do you call it, a mass event where everybody sees you when only like a small percentage, most likely is still, or even a small percentage, whether they're positive, but there's still a small percentage negative that could want to destroy those beings or even the whole planet in the process. Then that kind of defeats the purpose of making the contact. So there's
Mhm.
those things to consider. And
And
why
when
would
those Orion groups do that, they are kind of going against the Prime directive as well, making their presence known um, in that way, in that fashion, in a mass fashion where the race or humanity might be ready for it, right?
Yeah. Like, yeah, and interfering with free will and that kind of stuff.
Right. Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this. We could go on and on about that kind of topic.
I love this too. Yeah. It's funny that you brought up like that. I like to bring up Law of One randomly in videos because sometimes I'm like, it's so unrelated to some of the things I'm talking about, but I just can't help myself. I like it is related, but like to people that don't know about it, they're probably like, what the heck? This guy was just talking about crypto and now he's talking about the law of one and service to self, service to others and all densities and all this stuff. But to me, it's like it's all related.
Yeah.
It's so important. Yeah. And like you said, like you're just drawn to it, certain things just like sync up so nicely. And you had a good reference to a site where you can basically get all the details and the terms pretty much for free online. So
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
totally useful.
lawofone.info is the free website where anyone can go to and read it. And then if you prefer physical books, you can buy those like on Amazon.
Perfect.
Okay. I didn't know for that website. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool because it organizes it by category too. So that's how I first got into it,
Mm.
is I would go to the categories that like most piqued my interest. And then that I would just kind of branch out from there. So you can go to Earth history category where they're talking about
Yeah.
Atlantis, Lemuria, that kind of stuff. You can go to the densities. You can go to service to self, service to others, white magic, black magic, like
Oh
all that
wow,
kind of
that's
Very cool.
awesome because there's so many
Yeah.
topics. It's so expansive. That was my challenge, like getting through all of it. There's so much
Yeah.
stuff all over the place. It's hard to retain those things. But if you could like focus in on one section at a time of the different topics
Yeah.
and bring them together, yeah, very
And I
cool.
haven't even finished all like 4 or 5 of the books that there are. I've kind of like I've read the first one probably 3 times, and then the other ones, like the second and third one, I've read once all the way through, and then I'm like on the fourth and fifth ones right now.
Yeah,
And the fifth
it's
one's like the fifth one you don't have to read in order because it's like the deleted transcripts from their
mm,
personal details, which is interesting. So it's like filling in the blanks of some of the personal life stuff. But
Oh,
there's actually a lot of really good like applicable information, like observing their experiences going through this raw contact channeling, the struggles they were having, the psychic attack, these kind of things, and how they
yeah,
were taught to like overcome it,
mm,
um, is really useful, really helpful.
cool.
very
Yeah,
cool. Very
yeah, it's
cool.
definitely a chore to get through all that material reading it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it is. It can be really dense.
you gotta have some time.
Sometimes I'll have to go back and read the same sentence like 5 times. I'm like, okay, wait, I'm still not getting it.
That's the hard part. Yeah, yeah. I mean, to retain it, yeah, you really have to spend some time on it. Yeah, to
Yeah.
focus.
And every time I read it, I like even the first one that I've read like 4 or 5 times, I get new things out of it. Like when I come
Yeah.
back to it with a higher consciousness after like a year or two or something, I'm like more able to receive messages that I just didn't even get
Yeah,
before.
yeah, it's pretty
Exactly.
amazing. Yeah,
Exactly.
I think they say that about like some of the tablets, right? Like the emerald tablets or something, where like you can read them at different levels of consciousness
Mhm.
and get something out of it at wherever you're at, which is cool.
yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, for sure.
It makes a lot of sense. I found that too with all the books of the stuff that I was in. Basically, our grandfather had a library, and I inherited that and read a lot of those books and added on to them. But like when I was a teenager reading some of this, like I read like the 12th Planet and all that stuff, and like ate it all up, and I could digest it pretty well. But some other stuff was very highly spiritual and like just remote, like not remote, but channeling information. I was like, how much am I going to really buy into this? So like I half read it and half understood it, but going back now and seeing how those pieces fit, and now I realize, there's a reason why I wasn't ready to take in some of that then, but like there's always been this path of every book I read and led me to the next, like that just connects all those dots and like it all starts to come together. So it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's amazing how
Yeah.
that,
I love
yeah.
that. It's awesome.
It's that synchronistic part of it. Just like, like you said, you can open up the Bible or like the Law of One, and it seems so relevant just by randomly opening the page or whatever. Right?
That is such a fun thing to do. If anyone listening has never tried that, like get your favorite spiritual book that you connect the most with, just open it to a random page every day, and you will legit get real contact for useful things. And it's kind of like almost like tarot cards,
Yeah.
like it's just a way to contact like your higher self and the divine.
And so
Yeah.
you do that quite a bit. Is that part of like, I don't know about that part of the tarot stuff. You do a lot of tarot or?
My wife Alexis is really into tarot. Like she does it professionally, and I basically picked it up from her, and I do it personally. I don't like really. I mean, I'll do readings for friends and stuff, but I don't do it as like a professional thing. But
Yeah,
I find I find that it really helps with indecisiveness and just like getting some clarity. And
sure.
it won't always give you like a black and white yes or no answer to things. Usually it does not, but it invokes the questions that you actually have to ask yourself to get the real answers that you need.
Yeah.
Right.
I caught a little bit of your live stream today, and you pulled that one tarot card about what was it? It was was it
Justice?
legal justice? Yeah, justice. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty cool considering the news today. Yeah.
Yeah, literally like I'll pull it open and read it real quick. It's pretty short. Let's see. They say justice is very much a card of balance, though more of the rational kind, logical kind, using the intellectual mind rather than the emotional self. A balanced mind will be required in order to come to a well-balanced decision that is fair and reasonable for all concerned. It can represent the legal ruling upon a matter falling in favor of the rightful side. Legal documents are implied. Justice usually has a beneficial outcome unless other cards indicate otherwise. So yeah, super spot on with the
That's
whole
awesome.
XRP ruling
Yeah.
today.
Oh yeah. That's
Very
perfect.
cool.
And the other one
That's
was the Queen of Swords, which is kind of like I interpret her as kind of like the protective mother, but like no BS, like cuts through to the truth kind of divine feminine energy.
I
Mm,
got you. Nice.
yes.
Yeah.
I
Cool.
like that. That's a
Anything
good
else
way
you
to
guys
kind
want
of,
to talk about today? Yeah,
I think
Hmm.
that's pretty
covered
good,
quite a
huh?
bit.
Yeah, I feel like we hit a lot of good stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can't think of anything else right now.
yeah, I feel pretty good about it. Do you want to plug your Conscious Crypto Academy real quick and
For
let
sure, for
people know
sure.
where they can find you and all that good stuff?
Yeah. So my website is consciouscrypto.info. So instead of .com, .info. And that's where you can find the information about the Conscious Crypto Academy program. And basically what we do is we have course material that's all pre-recorded, ready to go. As soon as you join the program, you can start going through it. You'll get that basically for life as long as I'm still doing this education. There's no like time limit as far as like you got to do this much per week, and it's in the flow. It's for people who people have busy lives. So that's the course material will get you through all the basics of the fundamentals of crypto, how to buy, how to set up your wallets, like passive income too. That's a really big part of it, like generating passive
Yeah.
income. Interest generation on the blockchain is a really big thing. So like in the banks you get like 1% or less. Now it's like negative percent interest because of inflation and interest rates and everything. So you're losing money. But like on the blockchain, like the main passive income blockchain that we're using right now called Corium does about 30% annual returns. So pretty dang good.
That's great.
Absolutely.
And that's going to be coming to XRP actually sometime probably this year. The newest update is going to bring basically interest generation passive income. So that's going to be major. So we'll teach you all that. And then we do weekly Zoom calls. So we jump on a call every week, answer your questions, go over updates in the market. You know, it's a good place to like get all those updates. So you don't have to, if you don't want to go to Twitter and YouTube and all these social medias to gather, I'll do it for you. I'll give you the updates. And then we have a private Telegram group where we do all our networking and day-to-day talking and that kind of stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah. Like I said, it's definitely worth it. Totally fast track your education into crypto and something you can keep using and learning more as you go along. So it's awesome. Sure.
Yeah, it was awesome to have you in there. You're a great
Yeah,
part of the group.
glad to be there. Um, if you guys don't mind, I'm just kind of feeling inspired to read that Hopi prophecy, just kind of what we talked about today, and just
Yeah.
feeling the
Sure.
good vibes of like where we might be headed.
Sure.
So this is a message from the Hopi elders. It's you've been telling the people that this is the 11th hour. Now you must go back and tell people that this is the hour, and there are things to be considered. Where are you living? What are you doing? What are your relationships? Are you in the right relation? Where is your water? Know your garden. It's time to speak your truth, create your community, be good to each other, and do not look outside yourself for the leader. This could be a good time. There is a river flowing now very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel they are being torn apart. They will suffer greatly. Know the river has its destination. The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the river, keep our eyes open and our heads above the water. See who is in there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment that we do, our spiritual growth and journey comes to a halt. The time of the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and your vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. We are the ones we've been waiting for. It's very awesome.
So good.
I think it like so aligned with everything we just talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you
Now
for
is the
reading that.
time. Yeah.
The community part too, that's something I've been really drawn to lately. Like that we gotta create more communities of like our like-minded soul family. And like I think that's gonna be a big part of this financial shift is we're actually gonna have the funds to be able to do that and like create what I would call like the cities of light, like these intentional communities that are based on connecting with the earth, our health, holistic technologies that are more natural. And like community is just so important. Like it's going to be a big focus, I think, moving forward over the next few years.
Absolutely. I love that vision for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think with the XRP, things like this make it come to like it makes it real. Like we could really do this. We could actually have the wealth and the abundance to create this for our future. So I love it. Love what you're doing. I love what you're doing. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, man. Yeah. And also as well, if you guys want to follow my YouTube is Cosmic Origins, youtube.com/Cosmic Origins is where you can find me for I do videos and live streams, that kind of stuff.
Good deal. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jay, so much for your time. We really appreciate you being here with us and look forward to talking to you some more.
Thanks for having me, guys. Much love.
Thanks.
Peace.